they're coming through and getting heavy. Talking about some dynasty, you're talking Debbie. You know my guys is never shook. It's time to sit down and let the Degens cook. That's right. You know they're coming through and getting heavy. It's time to talk some dynasty and talk some Debbie. My guys is never shook. Time to sit down and let the Degens cook. Ow!
Hello, my fellow Degens. How we doing? Happy Thursday. If you're listening live, if you're going to be listening on Spotify, happy Saturday. I hope nothing bad happens on Friday. What's going on? Today, we're breaking down the 2025 season. We are talking about everybody that's going to rise up, that's going to fall, how the outlook looks for a lot of these guys. I mean, there's going to be some standard players that you expect, and then some players that might rise up, especially rookies. We'll break down the rookies and how they slide in there. Before I get that started, though, I want to introduce my guest tonight, Mr. Michael Hauff. I hope I'm saying your last name right. I didn't.
That was actually spot on.
Hauff?
Yeah, that was
oh
spot
baby.
On.
Oh, I love that. At the FF Realist, Mikey. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. Happy to be here. Appreciate the invite. And yeah, happy to be here and ready to roll.
I love it, man. I was talking to you backstage. You're a railroad guy. You are over on Long Island City. I told you that I've had some issues with the railroad out there, but that's more about me being a 20-something drunk kid trying to find my way through Long Island City. So
sounds about right.
Yeah, man. It's good to have you on. I appreciate it. As always, I kind of give the intro to the guest. I give them the floor. I want you to talk about what you guys are cooking up. And I'm excited, man. I know that you guys are doing something fun. You have a new project. It's called First Read Fantasy. So I'm giving you the floor. I want you to give me the elevator pitch on this new pod and this new channel that you have going on. And if you guys aren't following him, definitely go hit that follow and like button over on YouTube. But for right now, just open it up and tell me exactly what you guys are cooking up over there.
Yeah, well, it's me and Pete Nova, who is on Player Profiler right now. So me and him were on a previous podcast, and we decided to branch off and kind of do our own thing. So yeah, it's First Read Fantasy. We did our first show today. We did a $25 best ball millionaire lineup, best ball draft, which was fun. We had a good time with it. Pete was a little skittish behind the scenes producing because we tried out there's all these different sites where you can, produce a show. So we tried a different one. We'll see how it goes. But really, it's going to just we're going to be putting out a ton of content, everything from DFS. We're going to be doing a lot of best ball, obviously. We're going to be talking about rankings. We're going to be talking dynasty on there. Pete's going to bring his defense, his streamers, which was very successful last year. I'm going to be doing my kickers, which, listen, if they're in your league, then they matter. So, and really, we're going to have fun the whole way. We're not going to take ourselves too serious. We're going to have a good time with it. So, yeah, definitely check it out. First Read Fantasy. Again, we just did our first show today, but we already have over 100 subs. So looking forward to building that.
Yeah, go sub to them. I'm sub to you guys on all 5 of my accounts, man. Hey, even my burners are sub to you. So I know that's kind of, I'm not usually following people over there, but I can't wait to cook up and then maybe collab with you guys and get some things going.
Absolutely.
Our channel is wide open. We've streamed from Player Profiler now, but I mean, we're always looking to, kind of collaborate and get some things, some joint exercises going. It's always fun to do that.
Yeah.
But as I alluded to today, we are talking 2025 outlook. We are trying to predict the future. And that's, a little sprinkle of hope and dream. And then also some analysis from last year, the projections for this year, team outlooks, changes have happened. Offensive lines have beefed up. We see guys moving. We've seen a couple guys move teams. We've seen new rookies come in and old guys pretty much get shipped out. So there's some shifts, man. And it's fun to address this and talk about this a little bit. The first thing I want to talk about is the running back situation as a whole for next year, because I mean, running back in general, you see the cut and dry. We see the obviously Bijan, Gibbs, right. And then, we're going to see Genty kind of slide up there. Ideally, that's what we're looking at is, there's a top 3 or 4 guys that come in, but then outside of that, Barkley's going to be there and without injury, like we're talking about aging out guys and then new heads coming in. How do you have Genty matched up as far as just coming in right off the bat? Do you see him as like producing behind Gibbs, maybe in front of Barkley or behind Barkley? Like it's kind of hard to throw him in this mix right now. Obviously we expect him to be a plug and play guy, but rookies are rookies, man. Even when we saw Bijan, he was splitting carries with Algier for a while. So do you have Genty as a top 5 running back for next year?
I have him right now in terms of 2025. I have him just outside my top 5. I believe he's right around 6 or 7. And I know we saw Bijan split carries, but and I don't care if this is a broken record or not. That was living in the world of Arthur Smith. We were in that web. We saw what happened last year. I think we would have got a similar kind of outcome had there been a coach there that just let him go. Be that as it may, though, I know it's always important to not get overhyped about rookies. I know we all look at these rookies, we get very excited, and then they land somewhere, and sometimes we just disregard the landing spot because we love them so much that these guys are going to be great. But Genty, I feel like, is one of those. It's just a slam dunk. It's a can't miss. Again, I've got him right around 6 or 7. I can't put him in my top 5 right now, but if he does crack the top 5, will I be shocked? No, but because the only thing with Barkley that worries me, when you look at those regular season touches along with the playoff touches, it's a lot of touches. Then we have the tush push still being in play. So that's not to say Barkley's going to fall off the face of the earth, but what if he doesn't get as many touches? Again, I still think he does enough to finish ahead of Genty. And for what it's worth, Bijan is actually my RB1 this year.
Yeah, I think he's set up for a monster season. I think they've just kind of made all the moves necessary, beefing up that O-line where they are probably – I think Michael Penix is going to move that offense a little better. It's going to be more efficient. So I'm with you on that. I think it's, it's very – like the chalky at the top right there, like Gibbs, Bijan, we are going to see elite RB1 usage. What I think a lot of people are curious is, where do we see CMC playing out this year? If we see a fully healthy CMC, I think the only issue is going to be his health. Like, how does he come back? And what do we see as far as his usage goes? And it's like, I want to trust him fully. Is he somebody that you trust going into this season and you have ranked up there?
He actually is number 5 for me. So I just pulled up my rankings. He's number 5, Achan's my number 6, and then Genty's my number 7. The big question mark with McCaffrey obviously is health. That's the only question mark we're ever going to have with that guy. I think he's got another year or two, as long as he's healthy, of being a top fantasy running back. I mean, he did. The big question mark was really on him when he was in Carolina. You remember he used to get dinged up a lot. Then when he was with San Francisco at first, he was healthy. It was just until this last year. So he practically had the whole year off. When you think about it, he didn't even get into the huddle this last year until late. Then got hurt against Buffalo in that debacle of a snow game, and then we didn't see him again. So I'm going to go with he's healthy. He's good to go. We've heard nothing from the 49ers to suggest otherwise. They really didn't tackle running back in any kind of big way. They took Jordan James in the draft, but outside of that, they really didn't stress to bring in another running back. So to me, all signs point to him being healthy. I have the luxury of, since I'm such a junkie in terms of fantasy, I'm in so many leagues where some of these drafts I'll say I'll take them. Some of them I'll say, I'll wait. But right now, a lot of these best ball drafts I'm doing, he's going at the back end of the first, maybe early second. I'm comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think his value is right spot on. Like if you don't feel good dropping a first on him in best ball, I think that his redraft value is going to be even lower. I think a lot of people are going to fade him out. We're going to see obviously Genty go up there, and then we're probably going to see some rookies like Hampton and even Caleb Johnson, RJ Harvey jump shark a little bit and
Yeah.
probably go before him. So I think there's going to be a lot of running backs that create a CMC value for sure. And a healthy CMC, you're right. They didn't take anybody. I mean, Jordan James is good. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, he's not a bum by any means. Like, he was in Oregon with our guy that we're going to talk about in a minute there. But like, he did very well. Like, he was splitting carries with somebody that we're going to value as a top 10 running back this year, and he showed out. I think that once he left, he showed that he could be an RB1 in an offense that was very similar to a college or an NFL offense. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of fluidity once you get past that top tier. So I think it's like Bijan, Gibbs, Genty, and Barkley in that first tier. Like, I think that's like set and forget it in whatever range and whatever order you want to talk about. And then it kind of goes like, we're talking CMC, and then correct me if I'm wrong, if you guys have any guys mixed up here. I think it's probably Jonathan Taylor. And then there's Bucky Irving. Does Breece Hall slide in at top 10 for you anywhere? Or is there like the Kyron Williams, the Chase Browns, even the Josh Jacobs? Like, this is where it gets murky for me, but I don't know how you have it personally.
Breece Hall is just outside my top 12 right now. A lot of that has to do with competition at the position, which I always love to say, because you were just mentioning a lot of really good names, but it's weird to look at my rankings, see where I have Breece Hall, and then we were doing, you mentioned our first read fantasy. We did that best ball draft today, and I looked at it, and Breece Hall went in the fourth round, like early fourth round. And it's like, you think back to last year, the big dogs we were talking about was CMC, Bijan, and then Breece. So I wonder if it's very overreactionary in terms of what Aaron Glenn had said when he first got the job, talking about multiple running backs. This is what we're going to do. There was a trade rumors. Obviously, at this point, he's not getting moved. I'd be surprised to see him get moved. So I feel like of the guys I don't have in my top 12, which Breece is just on the outside looking in, I feel like he could crack that somehow. That's the tough thing about doing this, is it's like, all right, well, if he hits the top 12, then who's going out? Is it a Bucky Irving? Is it a Chase Brown? Those are the guys at the back end for me. But I mean, I do feel like the hate's gone a little bit too far on Breece Hall.
Yeah, I agree. And I think he's a sneaky play for best ball. And then I still love him in Dynasty, because if we are talking back end of the third round, even sometimes early fourth, that's where he's going in Dynasty. And you're right. We were talking about him as a top ranked individual even 7 months ago, so I think it has a combination to do with Aaron Glenn coming out and stating that he's going to use a committee, and then also Fields might play into this. They see a rushing quarterback. They see a guy that might not be as efficient. Well, I mean, we're talking about the Jets, who was efficient in moving the ball in general. I mean, I think Fields might be more efficient, but people still have the stigma of, Justin Fields in his early Chicago days not being able to move the ball and throw past 120 yards a game. So it's like, I think there's a lot of reasons to maybe fade him, but man, I think that you're going to get a bunch of dump offs. You're going to get an efficient offense for what it is. If they protect the ball and he limits his turnovers, I think he's a massive value in any format of fantasy football.
And I'll just go on to say too, the one thing, like, talking about like doing running back by committee, and this isn't to say that Aaron Glenn is lying. This isn't to say other coaches lie about that, but I think there's a difference between when somebody says that in March or April, and when it's in the season. And if Breece Hall is the hot hand, this isn't to say he's going to get 100% of the running back carries with the Jets, but if he's hot, it's going to be like, all right, well, we don't need to be committee this week. We can, we can give him 20 carries. We can do whatever we do, So I do think that we need to kind of keep that in mind. I'm sure that's Aaron Glenn's intention going into the year, but let's see what happens. And I like him talent-wise more than anybody else in that backfield.
Yeah, I think, I'm with that. And before we move to wide receiver, let's just talk. Do you see any other rookie cracking the top 10. And then we'll discuss, do we see any sneaky play? Somebody that was like maybe top 20 in that range that could see a massive workload or is in a better situation, or you just like more than some of these guys in this range. But do you see like a Hampton or even RJ Harvey cracking into the top 10 this year?
I would say I would probably give the edge to Hampton over Harvey. I don't know if either of them do, but I would give the edge to Hampton. The one because you look at what Jim Harbaugh has done with that offensive line. It was the same thing all those years ago when he went to the 49ers as a head coach. Beefed up the offensive line, then worked around that. So we're seeing that now happen with the Chargers. But I don't know if either of them crack the top 10. I will just say, though, I love RJ Harvey. I'm going to be looking to draft him, whether it's redraft, obviously dynasty, obviously with the rookie drafts. I'm going to be looking to get my hands on him because all I wanted entering this offseason for the Broncos was let's get a running back. Let's get a tight end. They got Evan Ingram. I'm intrigued by that. And I'm very intrigued by RJ Harvey. I think he's going to get used well in that offense. So I am cautiously optimistic about that. But if I had to pick one of them who could crack the top 10, I'd probably go Hampton. And by the way, Najee Harris was a guy I wanted to go to the Broncos. He goes to the Chargers and immediately gets his fantasy value shoved down the toilet with Hampton going there. So
yeah,
that happens.
He's tough. I love that offensive line. I'm with you on that. I think it's got all the makeup for him to be extremely successful. And we're talking about Sean Payton building an offense for the first time in his regimen in Denver. It's really he was kind of handed this offense and he had what he had, but like this is the first year where he's got the offense that he wants. That's his offense.
Sure.
Like these are handpicked guys. He went out, like he got Brian in the third. He's plucking these guys because he sees value in them. He sees the possibility of what he can build. And that's why I trust these guys. Like I trust the offense that he's building, not the offense that he inherited, right. I like Keyshawn. I like Keyshawn being a dark horse guy that could slide up. But I think that the Sampson pick makes me believe that they're going to do a kind of like a Gibbs, like a poor man's Gibbs, Monty situation where, Keyshawn is Monty and Sampson tries to play the Gibbs role and it could limit the output there. And then, Harvey looks like he's primed for the king spot, and then Hampton splits with Najee. It's it is what it is. I think they all have the opportunity, even Caleb Johnson, given the right circumstances and the right gameplay. And we don't even know who Caleb's quarterback is going to be right now, but it's tough to rank.
Rodgers, but
it is. It's Rodgers, right? All of this is peacocking right now. He's out there. He's riding the Dolphins, and he's eating mouse poop or whatever he does to get ready for the offseason. He said
something on a podcast today, and I was just like, I didn't even see the headline. I saw you made a comment on a podcast. I said, all right, here we go, because then everybody comes out of the woodwork, and
at first it was all right. Rodgers is going to go join Pickens and DK, and they're just going to like have Fight Club every day, and it's going to be a disaster. But now they move Pickens. There's like less of, an opportunity for like an insane disaster, like having like the Step Brothers opening scene fight and stuff. Like, I think that Rodgers has got to be there, and that probably opens up even more lanes for Caleb. You got a quarterback that can actually. You got to respect him a little bit, even at his age. You got to understand that he's probably seeing the field still pretty well. But is there anybody that you didn't even have close to the top range of running backs that is peaking and coming in this year as opposed to falling out? We are looking at there's not like a great guy to come in. Like, what if Travion Henderson it finds a incredible role in a McDaniels offense, can Kyron Williams, I don't know. There's not, Kenneth
Yeah.
Walker is everyone's pick to be a monster this year because they got a fullback in the offense, and they're beefing up the offensive line a little bit, and I like it. I don't trust his health at all. I can't willingly put any of these guys up there. I think it's really cut and dry as far as the top 10 guys.
No, I agree. I would say if I give you a name, if I give you like a veteran, maybe if a Joe Mixon is playing a full 17 games, maybe, perhaps. I mean, he did get jammed up with that injury early on. He was playing well. Again, that's a dart throw. I'm not saying he will be top 10. I could see it happening. I could see him being that name. It's like, oh wow, okay, Joe Mixon finished there. In terms of Henderson, you mentioned like Rabel talked about Ramondre still being a big part of the offense. I believe that. So and I think if nothing else, it's enough to keep Henderson or Stevenson really from being up there in that top echelon of running backs, because I think they're both just going to eat into each other. Those would be running backs I would be more inclined to draft in best ball, where I don't have to pull my hair out about who am I starting each week. So, but yeah, I mean, if I had to give a name, well, I mean, Brees Hall did finish outside the top 12 last year, and that's a name I like, so I guess I could say that, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all of the rhetoric in the offseason was that all these rookie running backs were coming in to destroy backfields, but we didn't really we saw Ramondre get cooked. We saw Najee get cooked, but really we're not looking at a lot of decimation. We're not looking at like a lot of aftermath when it comes to, I was expecting to do pods just talking about funerals and stuff, like doing full funeral pods and wearing all black and talking about the death of guys that we expected to cook this year, but you don't see it. Everyone's wondering how many pina coladas you had tonight. Are you looking at
no pina coladas? No
pinas, dude?
I don't know why
man.
pina colada is a thing. I don't know where that came from. Anybody who knows me knows I'm a beer and whiskey guy, but
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right now it's just actually it's just seltzer right now. Seltzer,
nice.
and I had a Red Bull earlier. Keep me awake.
Yeah, man. Yeah, you're good. I mean, it's late. All right, man. Let's talk wide receivers. Let's talk about I mean, we are looking at a repeat of Chase being wide receiver 1. We see CeeDee Lamb with a healthy Dak. Jefferson has a guy that he's been going to Timberwolves games with and really bonding. And I think there's a lot of love there as far as it's just a good, it's nice, man. I want to see the vibes. I want to see people that connect, and that usually translates to at least some good chemistry. Right. So
yeah.
But off the bat, you think that Chase is going to repeat as wide receiver 1 this year?
I will say what I thought was interesting. I think he could. I was looking back, and we haven't seen a wide receiver repeat as the wide receiver 1 since Antonio Brown did it. And by the way, he did it in 4 straight years, from 2014 to 2017. Dude. That's like that. Honestly, in terms of if you equated that to say running back, that's LaDainian Tomlinson type stuff right there. But
Antonio Brown is that like super hot girl that like definitely had emotional issues and you had like the worst time with, but like the sex was good, and you had to just keep going back, right? Like he was just like so good, but like every team knew what they were dealing with on a day-to-day basis, but they're like, we can live with this. We can get by with this, right?
It's like finding the smoking hot girl that's on the dating app, and then as you're looking, you get all excited, but then you stop and say, "There's got to be a reason why she's here. It's got to be a reason."
It doesn't check out, man. There's definitely something going on. You got 13 kids, or something's not right there. So,
but I mean, I do think Chase can be the number 1 wide receiver again. I mean, he beat the next best receiver last year, Justin Jefferson, by about 88.5 points. That's the biggest point differential between a wide receiver 1 and a wide receiver 2 since Cooper Kupp did it when he had 95.2 more points than Adams back in 2021. That's PPR scoring. But so I think there's a world in which he can. And to me, if you talk about the wide receivers, Lamb and him, and then Justin Jefferson. I think there's less question marks with Chase. I think the biggest concern is just the Bengals always seem to start slow offensively. Outside of that,
Yeah, it's always there's always like one hiccup on the team, like in years past, it was like Higgins really didn't stay healthy. We saw a perfect storm last year where all these guys were available. And it was nice to see. We could see what Chase actually is. It's like always been like what could be. Like is Burrow going to play through these injuries? Is like there was always question marks, and there was more issues with the guys below us. Obviously, we see Justin Jefferson with Sam Darnold, and as good as Sam Darnold was, he wasn't Joe Burrow. And then CeeDee Lamb didn't have a quarterback for half of the year either. So. It's going to be fun if we see a fully healthy Dak, and as much as I think Pickens kind of helps that offense, I don't see a lot of target competition even with Pickens there for CD. I think even before that, it almost helps him rather than hurts him. So it's like you need a guy to kind of spread that offense out. You need somebody else, like all these top tier guys like Justin Jefferson has Addison, Jamar Chase has Higgins. You need it too. And that's just really how it goes for the most part, unless you're Malik Neighbors and you can do it with whoever is lined up with you. Right. Is that the top three for you this year? Or do you have Malik Neighbors or even Brian Thomas or any of these rookies coming in?
Actually, it's funny when you put that in the notes, because that's literally my 4, 5, 6. It's Neighbors at 4, Amon-Ra at 5, and then Brian Thomas at 6. That's how I have it, and then I have the top 3 being the top 3. I mean, you mentioned it. Dak Prescott only played in 8 games last year. CD still finished as the wide receiver 8, and one of 3 wide receivers in the top 12 to not play a full 17, but still managed to be in that top 12. So, but yeah, so. That's my top 3, and then that would be my next 3 after that would be those guys. I know Neighbors, people say, "Oh man, the quarterback situation." Well, I mean, like, what was the quarterback situation last year? Like, was it something good? It was just as bad. If anything, maybe there's a little more promise this year.
There's an upgrade. I mean, I think that Russ Wilson is. What was it? I mean, he had DeVito for a couple games. Like, I can't even name.
Drew Lock.
All the Drew Lock. Like, I can't remember all the quarterbacks that played over there. Like, he had Daniel Jones for the first 5 games. It's like, I can't. All right. So the ghost of Russell Wilson, and then you got to imagine Dart is probably going to be in there game 6, game 7. I don't anticipate where they took him in the draft that he's not going to get some play this year. I can't imagine he sits the whole year. Especially if they're losing games. I don't know how fast it's going to happen, but I think we saw the debacle with Fields and Wilson, where they were playing one game and then he was playing the other game. And it was like, it was kind of like what they were doing with Anthony Richardson and Joe Flacco. It was like, they were going off of this guy's healthy, this guy's not healthy. And it was just messy,
Sure.
I don't think Dabble's going to do that, but I think that we're probably going to see a shift. And Dart's got a gun, man. Dart can throw it. You can say anything you want about Dart, but he's got an arm. So I think he's in a better position. Like I think if you're fading him on quarterback, I think that's a big mistake. But so you have Amon-Ra over Brian Thomas Jr. And I'm wondering, is that what are the reasonings? I mean, I'm with you. I think I'd still want Amon-Ra, but does the addition of Hunter change the outlook of Brian Thomas, or is there other factors going to play there?
That's why I have Thomas at 6, because of Travis Hunter being there. So I want to see how that dynamic plays out. I mean, I'll say this in that, again, I have Neighbors at 4, Amon-Ra at 5, Thomas at 6. If those are flipped, I'm not going to be stunned. If they're, if it's whatever, if it's Brian Thomas finishes ahead of Amon-Ra, I won't be shocked there either. I am a little curious to see how things go in Detroit. It's one thing to lose a coordinator. You lose both coordinators. You lose multiple coaches. I know we're talking about offensive side of the ball specifically, though. I am curious to see if that affects Amon-Ra. It probably doesn't, but I mean, and that's kind of why I kept him there at 5, and I'll put Thomas at 6. I mean, I will say, if Liam Cohen taught us anything last year, it's that multiple receivers can be productive. I mean, up until Godwin's injury, I'm pretty sure the Buccaneers were the only team in the NFL to have 2 wide receivers in the top 12. Now people are going to, because I got ripped apart on Reddit for that, because people said that I was now suggesting that Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter will be top 12. That's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just saying there's a world in which both players can eat, where maybe Thomas isn't 6th. Maybe he's better. So, but yeah, that's pretty much why he's there.
Yeah, and it goes back to us saying you with a 2, you could have better outlook in fantasy. You could have more points. You know, you are looking at a transition where you're not going to be matched up to the 1 every game. You could see a split where you're matched up on the 2 or even the 3 sometimes. It's just kind of the way that the defense plays. So it's like, yeah, I can't imagine we would have to see a big jump from Trevor Lawrence. Everyone kind of assumes that he's going to make a jump, but we didn't really see that he could produce at a high level with 2 options last year. You know, it was very like up and down. We didn't see Brian Thomas break out until Mac Jones got into the game most of the time, actually. I mean, if we're being honest. So it's like, you know, I have some reservations when it comes to a full season of that, but it's tough, man. I think that Neighbors feels safe enough to put at 4 for me. And then we're talking Amon-Ra St. Brown. I want to say Ladd McConkey is up there. Where would you put Ladd and Nico Collins on this list right now? Would those guys slide in after Brian Thomas, or do you have Puka in there somewhere? And there's just so much. Yeah. I mean, we could always
another controversial thing. I currently have, this is one thing that people don't like about my rankings so far with wide receivers. I actually have AJ Brown 7. So we talked about the top 3, then the next 3. My 3 after that, which I feel are just as interchangeable as 1, 2, 3, and 4, 5, 6, would be I've got AJ Brown, Puka, and then Nico. I'm going to be honest, between now and summertime, when these lineups are locked on Fantasy Pros, I'm probably going to move Nico up. I'm probably going to move him ahead of Puka. I don't know, because I think AJ Brown bounces back. I know some people are worried about that. I'm not really that worried about it. But so that's currently how I have that next 3. And Ladd, I got to move up more, to be honest with you. I think Ladd will probably be in my top 12 by the end of the summer. Right now, he's just outside it. Just because I don't think Tyreek Hill is dead yet. I know people want to, we'll see if he gets traded. I think if anybody gets traded between now and the season, wouldn't surprise me if Tyreek was traded, because we're hearing way too much smoke, and then the whole passive aggressive unfollowing on social media, or these vague posts, so that wouldn't shock me. And landing spot could dictate him dropping in my rankings, but so Ladd should probably be higher for me, but Nico is currently at 9.
Yeah, that feels good. Nico got a lot of help. Well, I mean, I wouldn't call it help, but Nico got a lot of friends on that team. He did get the 2 Cyclones going over there, and it's I don't think they're going to take away from Nico, but it's going to be kind of fun to see all that play out. Somebody that got less target competition, I think, is JSN. So JSN, and then also Garrett Wilson could slide up there, but I love JSN this year with just Kupp essentially being the only other guy that's going to. I mean, Kupp is not DK. He's not demanding the ball at all times. He's a vet. He's savvy. He understands. I think that in this offense, JSN could easily produce at a top 8 clip. I think this year, and then also slide up there to be in that tier 2, possibly with like the Brian Thomases and even the Amon-Ra St. Browns. If we see him produce at a wide receiver 1 level this year, I think that's a very real possibility. Do you see Do you see Garrett Wilson jumping up there, or any of the rookies, like as far as Hunter or even Tatora McMillan?
I don't have any of them jumping up and say my top 12. No, I don't. I think they'll both be good. I like Tet McMillan for fantasy only because I think we're going to see more of the Bryce Young that we saw in that last 7 games that he played, where I believe he averaged like 20.7 points. That's not to say he's going to average 20 points the whole year, but I do think we see more of that than we see the incompetent Bryce Young that got benched for Andy Dalton earlier on in the season. And so I think that bodes well for Tet in terms of target share. Again, we talked about Travis Hunter. There's a world in which he could produce too. I just don't know if I'd put those guys in my top 12, but there's a world in which they can succeed. I mean, Garrett Wilson for me, yeah, he's outside my top 12. He's a guy that could sneak up. Everybody wants to talk about the rapport he had with Justin Fields with Ohio State, of course. I saw a quote where Garrett Wilson was talking about watching some of Justin Fields' film, I guess, with the Bears or the Steelers, and he said there were certain plays where he said, "Yeah, well, I could have caught that." And it's easy to say that, but let's see you do it. But yeah, I mean, but Garrett Wilson too. I mean, he played well last year. Just so happened he fell into the roadblock that was the Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers connection. But so this is the main theme I think we need to take away from this. Like you mentioned JSN earlier, who I love too. There are so many good wide receivers here in this top, say, 15, where whatever you put out for your top 12 rankings, someone's going to say, well, where's this guy? Where's that guy? Like, and it's fair, So I think that's kind of what we're talking about here with these players.
Yeah, it gets very, like, I would say, like in a tier 2-ish range when you're talking about, I mean, I know you're high on AJ Brown, but he probably fits in this mold, this tier of AJ Brown, Drake London,
Sure.
Vlad McConkey. You could put JSN in there, and then it's kind of like that's like that little mesh of players where I wouldn't care how you rank these guys. If you told me that you had it Lad, JSN, and AJ Brown, or if you had an AJ Brown, JSN, and Lad, I wouldn't bat an eye, and I wouldn't think anything like it's crazy, because it's very difficult. All these guys, and especially London, we're talking about him playing full season away from Kirk Cousins, and I think we're going to see the ball get thrown a little more, and it's like I don't know, I don't know if I want. I don't know if I want Drake London or Nico Collins this year. I don't know. I personally couldn't tell you, because I think that we are probably looking at Drake London making a little jump, JSN making a little jump, and then even Garrett Wilson making a little jump in the ranks this year.
Yeah, but then it gets to that point where it's like, all right, well, if we have these guys making a jump, this means other people need to take a step back. And this is why I always love to talk about competition at the position in terms of, your rankings. It's something you need to equate just as much as you do, what's their target share, and, who's the quarterback, and what kind of camaraderie do they have with one another? I think they're all things to keep in mind. Just again, yeah, we're going to rank these top 15, and people are going to say, well, that's a mistake or that's a mistake, but that's
life, baby. That's how it goes. If you put your rankings out there,
really,
you are going to get so much pushback, and it's a homer. It's whatever, some guy that had this guy that he won money with, whatever it is. People have their reasons, and could be your aunt and uncle. I don't know, whatever.
Honestly, though, sometimes when you put your rankings out, a good thing about that, I know everybody looks at it in terms of like this negative reaction, but sometimes, honestly, sometimes you learn something, because sometimes somebody will bring a perspective to the table where you go, you know what, I didn't think of that, so maybe I need to adjust. So
yeah, I mean, when you're assessing all these guys and all these positions, it's good to have that negative pushback. It's good for people to question what you're doing, because nobody should ever have take lock in this industry. Nobody should just say this is how it is. You got to be open, and I always have it as so, in my Discord and stuff. I want people to question my takes and how I view things, because you're right, that's how you learn. And then you did talk about people are going to have to drop out. Is there anybody in that top tier from last year that you think could drop out this year? Like a Puka. I mean, does Adams hurt Puka at all, or does he help him?
I think that's one of those helps him, and I think that's somewhere where both guys can excel. I think if anything takes Puka out of that top tier, it's not Devontae Adams, it's his health. I think, he should have a little bit of an injury concern label. He has spent some time injured, so that's a guy I could see falling out. There's not a ton of guys I can see falling out outside. I mean, Garrett Wilson last year was still top 12 despite the whole Devontae Adams thing. I could see him falling out of that top 12, out of that top tier, but yeah, there's not a lot of names I would kick out of here. I mean, again, you mentioned JSN earlier. I love that guy. I have him ranked a little bit lower than where he finished last year, but I mean, yeah, but I love him too. So, and I'm still in on Drake London. I know you mentioned some of your concerns, but I'm still in on Drake. So,
yeah, I like Drake. I love Drake in Dynasty. I love Drake. I guess I like Drake this year. I do. It's just, when you're looking at the turn there and you're looking at guys like Nico and Ladd, and this is a hard tap, when you're trying to assess this little tier right here, you really have to trust your gut, because
right.
If you ask me who's going to produce more points, Ladd or London, I would be guessing at that point. I think,
Sure.
Team makeup. What is Trey Harris going to be a day one starter? Is he going to demand targets? Like, are we going to see the same target competition? Like, does Mooney really take a more, I mean, I'm not saying Moody's going to take a massive step, but maybe Moody does take a little step forward, like he did show us that he's a legitimate wide receiver 2 on a team, and that he is good enough to at least produce at that level. But yeah, I think it's tough, man. It's fun. It's a fun practice to go over this stuff, but
yeah,
there's no absolutes in Dynasty for sure. Before we get into tight ends, we are going to kick it over to the Podfather. He's going to talk about Dynasty Deluxe, and then we'll get right back to it.
If you play in Dynasty, you need Dynasty Deluxe, our premium package for Dynasty Leaguers. We rank over 300 players, updated every week, all year long. And there's a win now mode and a rebuild mode with superflex and tight end premium controls. And a Dynasty League sync, where you can say, sync down all of my sleeper teams, all my FFPC teams, and then you can browse around your leagues for who has needs, and then you can use our trade finder to see what kinds of trades are happening in leagues that are similar to the one I want to do. Then you can analyze trades using our trade analyzer, which balances the lifetime value, which includes pick values out to like 2028. All of that plus the rookie guide, $25 value, is included. So if you're just in one Dynasty League, Dynasty Deluxe is well worth it. And use your host's promo code, and you can bump up to all in and get $25 off.
Yeah, so use our code DGEN, that's DEGEN, and then you get a $25 deposit match on there. But all right, let's talk tight ends, man. I think that there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We saw a couple guys go first round this year. I'm not always banking on rookie tight ends to hit.
No.
We saw Loveland go to the Bears, where, it looks very crowded over there. And then obviously we saw where Warren went, where he might not have a viable QB for a little while. Who knows what's going to play out? Looking at Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, either way, I don't think it's a favorable spot right off the bat, So I'm not going to rank these guys immediately anywhere top 10 for this year. I don't think it's viable. But it's fun to talk about Brock Bowers and McBride. I'd actually have McBride outproducing Bowers this year. And that I think that's more about, Bowers being the lone wolf last year, and McBride's situation not changing, but the Raiders look like a different team. The Raiders look like a completely different team this year. And I don't know if you feel the sentiment, but I think that McBride's going to take the crown from Bowers as tight end 1 this year.
I still have Bowers as my tight end 1, but I could see that switching. Those guys to me are very interchangeable. And I mean, you look at McBride last year, targets galore. The only thing that really happened to McBride that held him back was the fact that he didn't score a touchdown until late in the season, and I mean very late in the season. If there's a scenario where he starts scoring touchdowns early and keeps that same target volume that he was getting last year, there's no reason why he's not the tight end one. So that could just as easily change for me. I mean, and you mentioned it too. You know, you talked about Loveland and Warren, and if they had landed in situations where Brock Bowers landed last year, we'd probably have a much different perspective of those guys in year one. That's why, like I was saying earlier, the landing spots are key for these rookies. But you also mentioned Raiders are a different team now. I mean, they got Genty. They have Beck, who I like. I think he's going to get some targets there. I think he's going to do it right there because there's not a. It's almost like the Patriots wide receiver core where there's not a ton of competition. So if you give somebody an opportunity there, they can flourish. So all that combined in a perfect storm, that could put Bowers at the tight end too. I mean, right now, again, he's my tight end one, but those guys can flip. But I would put those guys in their own tier in terms of tight ends.
Yeah, I agree. They're like a tier one right there. I think that a fun tight end room to monitor, and I'm intrigued by this, but the Baltimore Ravens, with the way that Likely ended the season last year, the fact that they didn't really take anybody, I think Likely has a bigger role this year. I think they're going to do two wideout set or tight end sets a lot. And where does Mark Andrews fall for this year in your rankings? Is he someone that is kind of fallen down the rankings, or do you have him, appropriately ranked as far as in the top 10 this year?
He's still in my top 10. I do think we could see Likely, still carve out a role in this offense. But I mean, when you look at their target shares last year, I mean, Mark Andrews had 15%, Likely had 13, so they weren't that far off. I just think we see it every year. There's always a week one overreaction. And we saw that last year when that Ravens game, they played the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football, and Isaiah Likely scores 21.6 fantasy points, and Mark Andrews posts 3.6. And then, Andrews was still slow, but when it was all said and done, I mean, Andrews was still a top 10 tight end. I'm pulling this up here. Yeah, he was still a top 10 tight end 6, and he was one of 5 tight ends with 10 games of 10 or more points scored. So
Yeah,
I think there's a world where both of these players can do well. I think that the sun is setting in terms of Mark Andrews in Baltimore, probably. But I still think both guys are going to eat. Both guys are going to do well.
Yeah, I'm still in on him. I think that he's a big time value coming off that tightrope injury. I think that last year was last year. I think he wouldn't see the real Mark Andrews until week 7, week 8. Like it was really tough to watch at the beginning of the season. He just wasn't himself. We are looking at a couple guys that are in fantastic situations. Like we talked about it earlier that that we're talking about Ingram. So Evan Ingram is in a great situation to revive his career. Coming over from Jacksonville, he kind of had almost like a dead year last year. It was tough. He was injured and he was kind of falling out of favor. They just didn't seem like they had any room for him anymore, and they were looking in a different direction. So we see that he's with Peyton right now. Do you have Evan Ingram in that top 10? Do you have him producing as maybe even a top 8 guy in fantasy this year?
Evan Ingram is actually my tight end 10. I could see him being tight end 9, but right now he's tight end 10. I wanted the Broncos to go ahead and get themselves a tight end, and they got one. I like the opportunity. Like a lot of these other players we discussed, the only concern with me for Ingram is just health. Can he stay healthy? If he stays healthy, I think he could take on a target share. I mean, we've seen what Sean Payton has done with tight ends in the past. This isn't to say Evan Ingram is going to become, a Jimmy Graham type guy, but I think there's a world in which, he's top 10 for sure.
Yeah, and then we're talking about George Kittle. So that team, might not have Ayuk. They don't have Debo anymore. We're looking at Ricky Pearsall and then Juwan Jennings. Really, there's no target competition, and we could be looking at a massive year for Kittle as far as usage goes. Like, I think that he's somebody that I would have ranked pretty high right now. I think he kind of slides in to tight end 5 for me. I think that even you could make a case for tight end 4, tight end 3. Outside of Trey McBride, I think he could be, like it could go Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, and Kittle in the top 3 this year. And that's not because I don't value anybody else, but I think Kittle is just lined up to have incredible usage. If he has a healthy season, like he's going to have probably the most targets out of all these guys.
18% target share last year for Kittle. And Kittle's my number 3rd ranked tight end. Again, I just like those other guys just a little bit more, but 6 games with over 20 points. Last year was his most consistent fantasy season since that big breakout year. I love Kittle this year. I think he holds down the fort. We're still not really sure when Ayuk is ready, when he at full speed. So I think Kittle will definitely be that guy to kind of hold it down. I don't envision a world as good as he can be. He doesn't crack into that top 2 for me. I've got him at 3. And the other thing is when Kittle gets dinged up, it's never really anything too significant. There was one year I think he missed like 8 games. But outside of that, I mean, he misses a week, maybe 2, maybe just doesn't practice all week, but then he plays. So, he gets labeled with that injury bug, but I don't really worry about that a ton. But he is my tight end 3.
Yeah, I mean, he's no Dallas Goedert by any means, Like, I think that, man, when I had him ranked high, I think it was like his one healthy season. He has continually missed 6 or 7 games every year. It's kind of a lock at that point. And, you could say that about Kittle, that he misses games and stuff, but the tight end position is so taxing on your body. Yeah. You are not taking plays off whatsoever, so it's really hard.
You're not especially the ball, you're blocking,
Exactly. Yeah, you're not. There's no like gimme plays. You're not just sitting there, kind of just like you see wide receivers do it all the time, where they're like giving you like a little block of the forearm, and then they're just sitting there walking. They're good. You don't see that with tight ends at all. I like T.J. Hawkinson this year.
Okay.
I like Hawkinson with J.J. McCarthy. I think the year removed from the injury, we didn't really see a fully healthy Hawkinson last year. So I think that I have Hawkinson like ahead of Andrews. He might slide into the tight end 6 range for me. Where's he drop for you?
He's actually number 5 for me. So I'm buying into the bounce back as well. Didn't play terrible last year when he came back. And, we always hear it, and it's true when we talk about a young quarterback. What's his best friend? Yes. Justin Jefferson will be J.J. McCarthy's best friend. Yes, I understand that. But the tight end is also something to rely on. So, I think that benefits Hawkinson. And I like Hawkinson more than I do, say, a Sam Laporta going into this year. So I would go with that. I will just say, if there is a tight end that I like who's very sneaky, probably not going to go drafted in many formats. But if you're streaming the position or maybe playing DFS, I like Brenton Strange. I know we talked about Brian Thomas and Travis Hunter. Is there enough targets? Where are you ranking them? Yada, yada, so on and so forth. But you look at Liam Cohen, the 2 years he was an offensive coordinator. 2022, Higbee finishes a tight end 8. Last year, Kate Otten finishes a tight end 14. So I will not be surprised if Brenton Strange is like top 15 tight end. It will not shock me at all.
Yeah. I mean, I like that. I think that offense is going to need somebody for that short intermediate plays. And I mean, there's not a lot of options, like we're looking at BTJ and Travis Hunter kind of playing the outside there. So he definitely could, I think, really benefit being in that offense, as the tight end 1. I also like Pat Fryermuth, on
Sure.
Pitt. I think that he's going to be the tight end, the second target on that team. As
Yeah.
far as production goes, like you're looking at DK, and then second option is what? You're not going Calvin. You're not. I mean, it's
No.
like it's tough. Like there's not a lot of options on that team, and especially if you have Rodgers on the team, I think Fryermuth is lined up for a nice season for sure.
No, I dig that. I dig that for sure.
I mean, let's talk quarterbacks before you get you out of here.
Sure.
Is this Jaden Daniels the one-ish? You still have Josh Allen? How does the first three guys look for you right now?
So right now, my first three quarterbacks are actually Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. Then I got Jalen Hurts after that, and then Joe Burrow. I think that top five, you can interchange a couple names, but I feel like that top five will be a majority of those names, unless you want to take a guy out. But yeah, Daniels for me is he's number three.
Yeah, that feels good for me. I think I did a overreaction video that comes out on Saturday.
Okay.
And Jaden Daniels is one of the guys that I have on there because in all the drafts that I'm in, I see him go over Josh Allen, and I'm not ready to do that. I don't think it's a smart thing to do. I don't think that people are really understanding the regression that can and probably will happen after rookie year. And it's not Jaden Daniels' fault. It's just the fact that, the NFL has more tape on him. They understand how he moves, the way that he moves, like how he calls plays, his tells, everything is on tape now. And whether you think you do things or you don't do things, like the NFL is going to find out what you do and what you don't do and the things that you don't know what you're doing. It's like, we see it, I mean, I'm not saying Stroud regressed because of just him, but there were a lot of outside factors. Like there has to be a perfect storm to repeat a monster rookie year. And we saw it with Herbert. Herbert had one of the best rookie years in recent memory. He didn't even repeat. He didn't even come close to repeating his year two. He fell off a little bit. So it's like you kind of have to expect a little bit of a fall off. And then you're looking at taking him over Josh Allen. People did that with Stroud last year.
That's getting a little too close to touching the sun for me, taking him over Josh. I mean, you look at some of the constants. I don't have the exact number of years in front of me, but I was having a conversation on Reddit yesterday. One of the biggest mainstays in the top three or top four has been Josh Allen. He's always there. He's just about always there. So, yeah, that's getting a little too much to me. I mean, you don't even have to mention the whole regression thing. Yes, it's a thing, but Josh Allen's just Josh Allen. He's on another planet. Like he's the QB1. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's kind of waiting on the fall off of Josh Allen. I don't expect that for another 3 to 4 years. If it's, if it's going to be a massive fallout, but I think that the way that he plays, he's going to need a big time injury. And that's not something you could forecast in fantasy, I think that we have to see him, unfortunately, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen in that kind of way. It's not going to just be, he's just done, because I think the way that Josh Allen plays, he could probably play at this level for another 3 to 4 years. And at that point, that's really all you're hoping for, especially if you're playing Dynasty. You play in a 3-year window. You don't look for, 10 years down the road. You don't even, I can't tell you what's going to happen next year, never mind 10 years down the road. So, that first three feels chalky to me. And then, Hurts, Joe Burrow, you could probably swap those guys. You could do that. Rushing is king in fantasy for me. So that's what I would probably default to Hurts in general. And then what are we doing here? Do we have any guys like a Bo Nix, a Drake May, or a Caleb Williams kind of coming in to round off the top 10 for you?
Bo Nix is my QB7 right now. I believe in Bo Nix. I do have Baker Mayfield just ahead of him. He's at 6 for me because I do think the touchdowns drop off a little bit. 41 passing touchdowns last year. I think that drops a bit, not dramatically, but no, Bo Nix cracks into my top 10. I actually, call me nuts, I'm drinking some of the Kool-Aid. I have Justin Fields at 9 right now.
Oh, baby. I was waiting for some spice, man. Everything's been kind of straight
Chalky.
line-ish, chalky stuff. And
Yep.
yeah, I am. So you're talking to a guy that was all in on Justin Fields going to Chicago. And I always have this soft spot for Russian QBs. I always view it as, okay, like I know that there's a lot of flaws, but the ceiling is going to outweigh the flaws in fantasy. I don't really care. The only issue is the job security is tough. But once they have that job set in stone,
Yeah.
wheels up. Obviously, Justin, we saw Jalen Hurts, wheels up. Like if even Kyler Murray at some point, even though he's fading out of rankings, like he was wheels up for a little while, especially when he was running like a maniac. The career is shortened on the most part, and it is what it is. But like while they're on.
Yeah.
So I like Justin Fields this year too. I agree. If you love Justin Fields this year, you got to love Garrett Wilson this year, right? I mean, you got to be in on this guy, this offense. If you think it's going to be humming to the point where Justin Fields is top 10, I think, unless you expect Mason Taylor to be a stud or somebody else that's going to eat into the targets, I think Garrett Wilson's lined up pretty nicely. And I love the Baker Mayfield take too. Yeah. He is such a forgotten asset in fantasy. Everyone overlooks him as far as, especially in the dynasty community, he is a full fade most of the time. Everyone doesn't trust him. He's going way back there. He's going behind Brock Purdy. He's going behind Kyler Murray. I saw him go behind Trevor Lawrence a couple times. I think it is mental. Yeah, it is mental. What about Caleb Williams with all these weapons now? And where does CJ Stroud land too? Justin Herbert, all these guys. You could put that in one little tier. Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Caleb Williams. Where do those guys line up for you?
I have Justin Herbert at 10. I got Caleb Williams at around 15. I don't know if that's fair, but that's where I have him. That's got a lot to do with some of the guys in front of him that I just think are just going to be better. Now, again, I've said this a couple of times, but would I be shocked if Caleb Williams finishes closer to 12 than 15 where I have him right now? No, it wouldn't shock me because I think there is, yes, the Bears always win the offseason, and I feel like it's like the little kid touching the stove, and it's just like they never learned. But like eventually we're going to learn with the Bears to just not trust them with these off seasons, but I still buy a little bit of it. But CJ Stroud, he's QB 19 for me.
Oh baby.
I think Stroud is he's a good NFL, he's a very good NFL quarterback. But sometimes that doesn't always mean they're a great fantasy football quarterback. I think that's kind of what Pat Mahomes is evolving into. I mean, he's one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. He's obviously first ballot Hall of Famer, damn near GOAT if he keeps winning Super Bowls, but his game has changed in where he's not a dynamite fantasy player. And that's fine. Who the hell cares? As long as you're winning games in real life. But I think Stroud kind of fits that mold as well in terms of being better for NFL than fantasy. And I'm worried about the offensive line there. I mean, they lost Tunsil. I know they did a little bit of work in the draft, but I'm still worried about that. So to me, and then you talk about the guys in front of them. I mean, what could I put him ahead of Tua? Tua's back where he is because I'm worried about his health. I had to hold my breath whenever he drops back. Jordan Love, all right. Even if I squeak him past those guys, he's what, my QB 16, QB 17. I just don't envision a world in which he's top 12. I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that once you get into this range of guys, when you are talking about guys that don't rush, and Patrick Mahomes, unfortunately, is in this range, we are placing him in that, okay, he's got to throw it 30 times a game and get 5 touchdowns to be extremely fantasy relevant. When it comes down to it, if you're not rushing for 80 to 100 yards or getting a couple touchdowns on the ground, you got to be slaying it. You got to be throwing it 30 times a game. You got to be really producing at a high level when it comes to running, and that comes down to the offense. Mahomes doesn't need that offense anymore.
Right.
His defense has been top notch for 5 years now, you know?
And I mean, some of these other stats on Stroud I have here, he went from scoring 20 plus points in 40% of his games during his rookie year to just 5.9% last year. It's a steep drop off. The 300-yard passing games, he had 6 of those in his rookie year. Last year, just 2. Then there's the sacks. He was sacked 52 times last year, second most, and 14 more than the previous year. So it's just there's red flags there, and I does he find a happy medium between the dip and those in those stats? He could, but to me, it still doesn't mean he's top 12. So I have him back there at 19, and that's probably where he's going to stay.
Yeah, I never understood. Did we get any development from Bobby Slowick moving off of that team? I just feel like that's when it really started to unravel for Stroud. You know, like they lose Slowick, they kind of break down the offensive line. They do some funky trades with that offensive line. They're moving around pieces. It's the team makeup went from probably the best I've ever seen his rookie year. They built this like great team for him.
Sure.
And then they kind of just broke it down. And when they built that team, we said the Texans figured it out, right? The Texans are finally doing something great, and they're building a dynasty the right way. Yeah. And then they fucked it all up, man. Yes, it was like, I cannot believe how they did the most Texans things ever to a team that they built up. Yeah. Like it was, I don't know. It still feels like a fever dream to me.
I get it. Even the beginning of last offseason, remember when they traded for Joe Mixon and we were all like, oh crap, here we go. Texans Super Bowl. Let's go. Like, and yeah, just it went very Texan-like.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of injuries, like not all of that is chalked up to the team makeup and how they built it. It was just, you know, they built the team with a lot of, I guess, there was a lot of risk involved, you know, like the risk tolerance was high, and it's tough. You know, you're bringing in guys with like, you know, not great character when you're talking about Diggs and Mixon. And I mean, you could say Mixon is winning all these awards for being an upstanding human, but he's got a great PR team is really what it comes down to it. You know what I mean? Like he's had some domestic issues. He's got some gun issues. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on behind closed doors with him. So, all right, man. Well, I think that we covered up a whole echelon of people there. We got through every position for the most part. Is there anything you want to add or anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
No, just well, in terms of plugs, just check out First Read Fantasy. Again, that's the podcast me and Pete Nova are doing. So search for it on YouTube, First Read Fantasy. Hit the subscribe button. Again, we got we got over 100 already, and we only did one show so far. So we're going to bring on some people. We can also do some collaborations. That'd sounds like a good time to me. And going to just keep delivering content all year long. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah. So if you're not following Mike at the FF Realist, go follow Mike over there, and then definitely subscribe. New channel. They are going to be pumping out content. They're going to be doing a lot of stuff, a lot of fun stuff, a lot of best ball stuff right now. And I'm sure they'll get in a little dynasty and then redraft and everything as the seasons change on. And, you know, much like everybody, but like, I think it's really nice to have a fresh face, and I love your content in general. I love what Pete does over there. He does a show with us as well. So it's going to be fun, and I can't wait to see what you guys are cooking up. But like I said, if you guys aren't following them, go check that out. You can catch us. We have the Devi show coming out on Monday, and then we have the redraft show coming out on Tuesday, and then we kind of start the week all over again. So if you missed this pod, definitely catch us. It's going to drop on Spotify, Apple, and all the streaming devices that you can catch us out on audio only on Saturday. But like I said, I appreciate you joining us. Mikey, I appreciate you a lot, and we'll catch you guys next week.